Appeals to order. The first item on our agenda is a new hearing for California Closets. Is as advertised. Come up and please introduce yourself. Give us an overview of the project.
Rich Pretorius Electric and Sign, West Bridgewater, Mass. Here for California Closets, seeking to install two signs, which are just over the height limits by about 1.3" on a corner spot. Also, window vinyl graphics.
All right, so there's nothing different than what you submitted in the application then? Yeah.
It's just over the 2 foot normally allowed, and it's two signs. We have
Sorry, is your microphone on?
green lights on.
Okay, all right, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I don't know about the people at home.
Yes.
Okay.
How's that?
All right, start with Jim. Do you have any questions or comments on this?
No, not at the moment.
Brenda?
No, I do not.
Charles?
How are the signs lit?
Internally illuminated LED.
Right, are they, typically we condition the signs to be, not to exceed 90 lumens per square foot, is that,
I've got that. Yeah. The 97 lumens. It's not it's not in a square foot. I can make sure that that's done.
okay.
Good.
I don't have any other questions at the moment.
Mark?
No. Questions right now?
No, I'm good so far.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions on this. Well, I guess my only question is there a reason that you need the name in every single window?
It's a branding thing. They do it every store.
Okay.
So it's continuity.
And those letters are on those decals on the windows, what's the height of those letters?
3 foot.
Oh, 3, yeah, okay.
3 inch.
3 inches, yeah, okay. That's all I have right now. This is a public hearing. Is anyone here to speak in favor or against this application? Seeing none. Does anyone else have any other questions or motions to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Anyone else with any other questions or comments? Or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve California Closets for two wall signs as shown on plans. Plan number 180661R2, dated 2/28, 2019. Sheets 1 through 14. With the condition, the lumens not to exceed 90 lumens per square foot.
Second. Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. All set. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a new hearing for Wheeler Road. Brenda, could you read that into the record for us, please?
Sure. Notice is hereby given that the Burlington Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on May 7th, 2019, at or after 7:30 PM at the Town Hall Meeting Room, second floor, 29 Center Street, for the petition of U66 Corporation for property located at 1 Wheeler Road, as shown on map 56, parcel 22 of the Burlington Assessors Map. The applicant is seeking to demolish the existing mixed-use structure building located at 1 Wheeler Road on a 79,260 square foot parcel and to construct a 22,000 square foot mixed-use structure building. The new building height is proposed to be 40.4 feet with an architectural tower detail featuring a 73.4 foot. The proposed impervious area of 54,910 square feet and landscape wooded area of 24,350 square feet, or 31% of lot parcel. The proposed project is in violation of Burlington zoning bylaw, Article 5, Section 5.2.0. Density regulations require maximum building structure height with a 5G zone is 30 feet. Burlington zone by law, Article 8, Section 8.3.8.4. Impervious surfaces with the aquifer and AMP water resources districts not to be less than 40% of the lot shall be landscaped, or if wooded, may be left in a natural state, as shown on plans filed on April 9th, 2019, and a copy is on file with the town clerk's office.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and give us an overview of the project.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Murphy, representing the applicant. Getting set up a little here. With me is, the applicant here is U66 Corporation. That's the current owner of the property at 1 Wheeler Road. For the board's information, 1 Wheeler Road is the property right at the corner of Wheeler Road in Middlesex Turnpike. Currently, there's a golf tech store there and a ski house retail store, big green building. With me at the table is Jim White, who's the civil engineer for my client, and setting up over here is John Rufo, who's his architect. This is probably a little bit more of a detailed presentation than you folks typically get. What my client is looking to do is raise the existing building and construct a new building, which is obviously a fairly involved process and expensive at that, but it starts here because, as proposed, there are a couple of variances that we needed. So we have to come to you first. We will ultimately be going, if we're successful here, we'll ultimately be going to the planning board and the site plan review. There's going to be some Conservation Commission involvement. So we kind of wanted to give the board an idea of what the whole picture looks like, just so you just hear about the variance and you don't understand what's behind it. So I thought it might be useful and valuable to you to get to see that. So basically what I'd like to do real quickly is just run through the variances that we're looking for. Then I'm going to let John and Jim just describe a little bit about the site and where it needs to be done and some of the history there. So basically, as I mentioned, this is the property at the corner of Middlesex Turnpike and Wheeler Road. The building that exists there was built back about 1995, and it's reaching its useful end both practically and financially from the property owner's standpoint. As I think everybody's aware, there's been quite a bit of development along the Middlesex Turnpike corridor over these past 5 or 10 years. My client is looking to essentially do the same thing. The plan that you have, or that was submitted with the application, shows 2 elevations of the proposed building, one from the Wheeler Road standpoint and one from the Middlesex Turnpike standpoint. They both show that the height of the proposed building is 40.4 feet above median grade, which is how the building department determines the height of the building. It also shows an architectural tower-like feature that goes up 73.4 feet, and both of those exceed the height requirements, or the height standards. Section 5.2.0 of the bylaw says it has to be no more than 30 feet high. So clearly, we need variances for the height of the building, both from the building as measured and the architectural feature, which is the tower. In addition, on the site plan that was also submitted with the application, It shows that the impervious surface, which includes the building, parking area, driveways, sidewalks, things of that nature, comprises about 69% of the area of the lot, and the bylaw requires no more than 60%. So that's the second variance that we'll be asking for this evening. In terms of the criteria necessary under the statute, I would submit that all of them are present. Little enforcement of the zoning regulation will prevent the applicant from being able to move forward with and develop a site as proposed. There are circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land, especially affects this land, for which the variance is requested. Specifically here, we have a triangular-shaped lot. It's adjacent to the Middlesex Turnpike. It has a pretty good slope going down from the Middlesex Turnpike down to the front part of the lot along Wheeler Road. It's a fairly steep grade. There are existing water easements that go across the property in the northerly end, along where the exit onto, or the entrance onto 128 is. There's the Vine Brook that goes along the southerly side of the lot. And so all of these topographical realities, they limit the options of the applicant in his attempt to redevelop the site. Not being able to redevelop the site will not only prevent him from making it more attractive visually, but it won't allow him to keep it competitive from a renting standpoint with the other buildings down in the area. I would also submit that the relief sought will not cause a substantial detriment to the public good. In fact, I would submit that it's a benefit to the public good. This site is kind of one of the gateway properties to Burlington if you're coming in the Middlesex Turnpike from Lexington and Arlington area. It's also visible from Route 128, and the 128 exit and entrance ramp goes right adjacent to the property. Current building is not very attractive. It's lived its useful life, and it's time for a change, frankly, more in keeping with what's been happening along that corridor. The new building, I would submit, fits the site better, and will be certainly more energy efficient. It'll be much more attractive aesthetically. I believe when you have a property owner willing to make the significant financial contribution to develop a site such as this, I think that's a benefit to the town. I think when you have attractive, well-maintained commercial properties, it's good for both the residents and also for the general public coming through the town. It gives you a good first impression of the town. Maybe you'll want to locate yourself there. I'd also suggest that it's not going to nullify or substantially derogate from the intent of the bylaws. With respect to the height variances, in one of the visuals that John is going to show you, will show that the new building is essentially going to be about the same height, maybe even a little bit shorter than the existing. Variances were granted to that when that was built back in '95. So I also point out that across the street from across Middlesex Turnpike, there's another shopping plaza, Middlesex Marketplace. They also have a similar tower feature. They have a clock on it with some signs on it, essentially about the same height as the existing one there. So we're not breaking new ground with this, and frankly, it's not going to be a lot different from a height standpoint than what's currently there. The tower goes higher than the green building does, but the green building itself is a little bit taller than what we're going to be putting there. As far as the impervious surface, this will probably be a small expansion of the impervious surface versus what's there, but this is directly tied into the topography of the land. Because of the slope and the nature of and the location of some of the easements and whatnot, it's necessary to put stairs and driveways, retaining walls in such a way to make the site work, and that pushes us over. But I would remind the board that immediately adjacent to this site, behind the hotel, used to be the Holiday Inn, I don't even know what they call it now, there's several acre wetlands area immediately adjacent to this. In addition, we've got a brook immediately adjacent on the southerly side. So I would submit that even with a small percentage increase in the impervious surface, visually this still looks like there's plenty of open space there. There's lots of meadows and wetland areas And I would submit that the small increase in the impervious surface is a small price to pay from a town standpoint to get a property redeveloped in the manner that we're looking to do it. So that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, is a brief overview of the relief that we're asking for. With the chair's permission, I'm going to let Mr. Rufo and Mr. White just walk you through the slides a little bit, just so you have, again, I just think it's important you have a sense of what we're looking to do there, because.
Yes. Sure.
I also, I'll give this to Joel and. This is just a small handout of what we have here, so for the board's reference.
Should I use a microphone or?
Yeah, if you don't mind, that way the people at home can hear you as well.
Hello? Okay. I didn't quite realize it being sort of in a corner, so I'll try to speak to both boards at once. And there's a series of 2 boards that will come up after each of these. So my name is John Rufo, and I'm a registered architect in Massachusetts and a principal in the firm of Foreman Place. We're based in Newton, Massachusetts. Obviously, the board on the left, you recognize the building and the existing conditions, 20,000 square foot building. The heights are listed on here, which are also listed on the handouts as approximately 32 feet above the grade at Middlesex Turnpike as it is today, to the height of it, right? But as was described, the topographic condition is kind of a bowl in there and kind of goes way down, so the entrance to the building is tucked away. So what the proposal here is, it's really a building that's much further back off the street. At the corner, this corner near the tower and the tallest corner of Ski House, it's about the length of a parking space further back. But at the corner, as you can see, the whole building is kind of swung around, the new proposed building to be about parallel with Middlesex Turnpike. And again, we're adding about 2,000 square feet of additional space here, so it's 20,000 square feet today. We're proposing that the building be 22,000 square feet in the future. The topography, because it goes down so deep and far, and really presents an eye-level view that's kind of below the edge of the street, this scheme really tries to address that by bringing the level and the entry into the stores, which actually face out, directly parallel to Middlesex Turnpike, really brings it up to the same level so that when you're there, you're not looking down into stores, you're really looking at storefront right across in front of you. That's really presenting, we think, something where passerbys and cars and on foot can really see into it much more easily, and it just presents, I think, a far better, superior building to the street in itself. It fits in with the retail streetscape a lot better, and I think the aesthetics are improved greatly beyond what the existing ski house is today. I'll put up 2 other boards. Try to be as quick as I can. So all of these are done, obviously, from actual photos. So this is heading southbound after you come under the bridge, looking at the site there at the proposed building on the corner. And then those are photos of 2 other conditions. Sorry. Just love easels. Sorry about that. Guess I'd better start talking fast. Really what tends to set up a building's presence to the street, one of the things, is its actual setback from the street. So on the image on the left, because our building is set back, I think, almost 120 feet from the street, if you just compare it to the East Boston Savings Bank across the street, which is a building that's not quite as tall, its presence on the street, the East Boston Savings Bank, is actually really quite significant because it's right up there. Our building is set back quite far, which is why we've sort of bolstered the height of the building in the design. It appears to be sort of, I would say, much smaller than the East Boston Savings Bank, for example. When you look at the next board, what we've done is a comparison of the Middlesex Marketplace, which is this building here, which has the Qdoba and the tower that's right adjacent to the highway. That building sits maybe 4 or 5 feet up off of grade where the storefront is from where the curb is at the street. And it's also much, much closer to the street. So just for kind of a visual comparison, remembering that this building is set back almost 120 feet from the street. And we think that it actually has quite a similar visual appearance to the street because of the facade, because of the tower. So it seemed like a really good comparison with the Marketplace tower itself. The roof line, the sort of typical roof line, which is to the peak of the mansard here on Marketplace, and the sort of 32-foot parapet off of grade that makes its way across. It's actually a very similar height, and you can see how it compares, the same exact photograph, to the ski house condition today. It kind of gives you a real clear visual picture of that. Let me look at 2 more boards. I'll take these down so it doesn't fall. Thanks. So finally, on this, when you see you're coming up north on the Middlesex Turnpike, and you've got the Dunkin' Donuts, which is there, you can just catch the slightest green there, which is the building today. As you see it, it's just there. And imagine that the building that we're proposing is actually set back much further than that. And this is sort of more evidence about why we're bringing the grade up and why we're getting the storefronts higher to the street. But one thing that's really interesting about this is that because of the topography of the site, if you bring these storefront levels up to what's essentially, again, the street height at Middlesex Turnpike, it allows you to have a facade facing Wheeler Road that actually would have storefront on it too. So the lower level has stores that are facing Wheeler, and the upper level has stores that are facing directly out onto the Middlesex Turnpike. And we see that as a good thing because it allows us to not have the building have a backside to it, which is not so presentable. So if you're literally here, you're looking at the intersection of Wheeler and Middlesex Turnpike, you're able to see stores above, stores below. So both streets are presented with storefront. We think that's a really good thing. And then finally, the actual height, which was discussed in the introduction. So this is the Middlesex Turnpike elevation with the storefronts really just right about at the Middlesex Turnpike height. So that's about 32 feet, but it's calculated to the mean grade, as was mentioned, to 40.4 feet. And then on the Wheeler side, that grade is up here, as it's shown on this image here. And again, that's 32 feet off of that grade, and you have the storefronts, which those stores would be 16 to 18 feet high, looking out onto Wheeler itself. The tower itself, off of grade here, right now is proposed to be about 65 feet off of grade, or as was mentioned, about 73.4 feet off of the median grade, or the mean grade around the site. I think I touched on all the points. I hope I did. So, do you have any questions for me directly, or?
Not right now.
Okay.
We'll listen to the rest of the presentation and then.
Good evening. My name is Jim White. I'm with the engineering firm of H.W. Moore Associates. And the Boone location, as most of you know, is located right along Route 95 at the railroad interchange. The proposed building is 22,000 feet. It's sort of a triangular-shaped building because the lot is triangular-shaped. The topography changes about 17 feet from Railroad up to the northern end of the site. So we're trying to match the second floor at the northern end of the site, which is about 17 feet higher. The lower level will have, the first level will be somewhat similar to, or just slightly higher than Railroad Road, similar to what the building is now, the first floor elevation. The existing building, as John mentioned, is out further toward Middlesex Turnpike. It's in this location, so we've set the building further back, so the view will be a little better looking at the building than it is now. It won't stand right out in front of you. Proposed project has 103 parking spaces in accordance to city zoning, town zoning. As I mentioned, the shape of the lot is irregular. What I've colored in here is, in the darker green, is the outline of the lot. Surrounding the lot is a lighter green. The lot itself is triangular shape, has Vine Brook running as a southerly property line, also has Old Railroad, the old right-of-way sticking partially within the site. As was mentioned, this is all green area to the east of the site, and we also have green areas surrounding the site out to Railroad. So it isn't like this is all impervious area. We're increasing the impervious area by about 9% on the site, and that's what we're asking for relief on. When we submit to Conservation and Planning Board, we'll be infiltrating all our stormwater, providing infiltration systems for all the stormwater out there. So we hope to satisfy it and environmentally be better off later than we are today with the up-to-date stormwater treatment system. As I mentioned, topography was very tough on the site because we're trying to get the site to match up with the northern end of the site. So the parking lot was designed and graded to meet that upper elevation of 17 feet, and that impacted the amount of parking we could have on the site. If you have any questions regarding pertaining to the site, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
And just in closing, Mr. Chairman, just to kind of summarize the, obviously, some questions. But I would just submit to the board that this is an area, this is a site that needs to be redeveloped. Its time has come. The current building is outdated. It's not competitive in the rental market. When you compare it to the other buildings down that area, it stands out as a sore thumb. I would submit that there clearly are hardships related to the topography of this site and also to the shape of the lot. Hardship's always an issue when you come before this board, and sometimes they're more pronounced than other times. I would submit that this is one of the most pronounced times that I've seen, because this is a very difficult lot. There's elevation changes, there's odd shapes, there's easements across it, there's brooks nearby. There's all sorts of things that restrict the free development of this without getting variances. And if we don't get a variance, we can't move forward with this project. It's clearly like the owner is ready to invest substantial money to do this. I think it's a benefit to the town if it gets done. It's going to improve things aesthetically. It's going to make the site more workable. And it's going to make it financially competitive. So the property owner can obviously continue to maintain it and pay his taxes and all of that good stuff. So I would request the board look favorably on the application. We're happy to answer any questions or address any concerns, as Jim and John and Dan, the owner, here is here as well, if you have any questions of him. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, we're happy to discuss them.
All right, John, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I have comments and some questions. First of all, if it's for you, Mr. Chairman, is it possible that we can vote on, he's asking for 3 separate variances? Can we vote on them separate, or do we have to vote on the whole thing as one?
No, I believe we could separate them out.
I think that would be prudent anyways for us. So, I love the argument that, it's an upgraded building, it's all up to code and stuff like that. I agree that the area certainly needs it. I agree the topography of the land is gonna give you a hardship, but I can't swallow that tower, man. That tower is a that's, I'm not gonna vote for that.
It's clearly it's an aesthetic thing. There's not going to be a room up there. But I would submit, and, there's obviously one right across the street. If you go down the street to the Staples Plaza, they have similar designs. It's something just to visually break up the building a bit. I mean, clearly, and this might be your concern, is that there's signage labeled there. No signage is going to go there without your approval.
I get that. But at the same time, one of your arguments is that the building is gonna be sitting high at the front facing Middlesex Turnpike, and you can see the signs. So the signage isn't anything more to me than it's redundant, you don't need it. And I'm gonna ask the board to separate them, and I'm gonna go with two of it, and I'm not gonna support the sign.
I understand. Like I said, it's an architectural feature. I would submit that when you get traffic going quickly on Middlesex Turnpike, as it does sometimes, or coming up and back and forth off of the highway, which they're going fast, a storefront sign is not going to be that visible. So I just throw that out in response to that.
I get it.
But it's, if we were breaking new ground here with that, I'd be a little bit more uncomfortable with it, but I think it's an architectural feature that's been approved along that corridor several times.
So that, all I'd say is that was a previous board.
Oh, I understand.
And, I wish I was here then.
I understand, but.
I wish I was here then,
Just wanted
but
to
that's
point
what
out.
they chose to do, and that's their thing, so.
Just one comment too, is a point of reference. That sign of the Middlesex Marketplace, that tower there, that's a PDD, so it's a
Right.
totally different
I
zoning.
understand, it's a different animal, but
Right.
they're not subject to the zoning laws, but they still went through an approval process.
I did have one more question, if you don't
Sure.
mind. I was curious, I know you said you're gonna have 103 parking spaces? Yes. Yeah? How many parking spaces are there currently? About 80?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Can I just answer, just a comment on your comment about
Sure.
the signage? The signage tower, the intent was really, since we have kind of like that basement level, it's fronting on Wheeler Road, it's really to help them out with some visibility, because as you can see from the Dunkin' Donuts, there's no visibility. You
Yeah, no,
go in there and-
I get that, I
Yeah.
get that. But, I'm only gonna speak for me, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but even before, I've always been consistent with my signage, and I'm not gonna support that signage. It's just, it's redundant, and it's too much for me.
Would and I'm not suggesting this, but I'm asking,
Sure.
would a smaller tower be more amenable to you?
I mean, the height of the building is already over what's required. I would, to be honest with you, I'm gonna sit and listen to the rest of the board and see what they seem to think about it, but, right now, no.
Okay, and just, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but on the height of the building issue, if you're looking at it from Middlesex Turnpike, it's only a couple of feet higher than the 30. But when you factor in the height, if you're on the other side, that brings the
Right.
mean height up to 40. But again, if you're standing out in front of Middlesex Turnpike, this building is not much higher than it's supposed to be.
Right, exactly. That's,
Except for the tower.
that's my point. That's my point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mark?
My question, at least initially, is have you received any feedback from the planning board or?
Not from the planning board, we're not before them officially, we have met with planning staff. And, they're generally in favor of any type of redevelopment, because if you don't redevelop buildings, they get run down looking, and then eventually they become useless, so.
I agree with you that it is,
So they're-
sore thumb, but
So we've got a positive reaction from the planning staff, but, you gotta go through the site plan approval and all that. Nothing's formally been filed there, because we can't even submit a plan if there's variances required without getting the variances first.
Excuse me, Mark, just on that, I was gonna mention this, with my comments, that I did have a discussion with the planning director today, Kristen Kasner, and she just said that they would like to comment on this as well, but they haven't had a chance to do a full analysis. They're really looking at the impervious, existing to not, but, so,
Yeah,
just as a comment, they didn't say one way or the other. Again, I got the feeling that they're in favor of redevelopment of this project, just they want to look at the details and they'd like to comment on it. I know that they'll have their chance to comment on everything as well, but they wanted to give us their feedback before we close, if it goes that far, but
What forum were they going to be discussing? Did she mean the board or staff?
I think she meant the board wanted to make comments. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to wait for them to do anything. If they make comments before we close, then that's the case. If not, then that's fine as well.
I mean, there's nothing formally before them, so I just don't understand under what forum they would have the opportunity to.
I think they,
Whatever.
yeah, that's up to them to decide if they want to discuss it.
Should have come, yeah.
All right, Mark, anything else?
Just to follow up on sort of the commenting by other boards, in terms of the density, I think, you know, they look at those issues all the time. You know, I looked at the aerial map here, and I see a lot of, you know, open space, green space. I don't know what's gonna be done in terms of taking down any trees, or is any of that happening? You're not,
Are you talking about on the adjacent property? There's a huge green space between the hotel and 128 that's not on our, most of it's not on our property. And so clearly, we're not touching that.
but the way the building, the existing building sits, there's trees all around the existing building. And I don't know how is that gonna be dealt with in terms of your proposal?
Well, there will be a landscape plan, you know, if they're going to redevelop it, there'll be a landscaping plan to replace trees. If there are miscellaneous trees taken down during the deconstruction and the construction process, planning board will usually require a landscaping plan showing trees to replace them.
That's just a general concern that I have regarding, and so if you were to, for example, it's 40% versus 31%, what would be the impact to the proposal if you brought it up to the 40%, which is the,
Well, the problem doing that, because obviously we tried to minimize as much as we can, and if we didn't have to ask for variance, we didn't want to. But the problems that you have with this site, one is to move the building as planned, there's going to be parking on both sides. That increases some of the impervious surface. The roadways in and out do, but even because of the level change, the stairs and walkways going up to get to the front part of it, all of that is due to the elevation change in the lot. And when you start adding that in, it pushes you over the 60% number.
I just want to add that, you know, the 9%, the extra impervious that we're adding, we're actually improving the area right along the brook, the Vine Brook. We're actually adding more green space. It's not going anywhere near there. It's going where the Middlesex Turnpike is and the building is. That's where
bringing the whole site out
it's
closer to
the
Middlesex
asphalt is
Turnpike.
shifting over so that it's actually better for the Vine Brook, and we're asking for the percentage out in the Middlesex Turnpike area. That's where it's coming out of. So we took a lot of thought into how and try to, because at the end of the day, we already have 20,000 square feet. This project is not about trying to like get more density. We're going from 20 to 22. It's just a little bit. So we're spending a lot of money for the extra 2,000. It really doesn't make sense. It's really all about elevation and how it's just, when you're so down far below,
Right.
there's just no way to do business, no way to, it looks kind of like a dead tower that no one can, it's like someone's hat, you know? You don't really see the face there. And so we want to try to address that by bringing it up. So
Yeah.
now you see the face of the building. Now it's part of the whole street where there's actually some people going, there's pedestrians, there's vibrancy, it's retail, you know?
Do you
It's not
agree
like
with all of that? I think it makes a lot of sense, and that's why I agree with John in terms of the architectural tower, that I don't think that aesthetically it's pleasing for that area in terms of an office building. I think that you have enough height, especially because you're bringing up the grade and you're making it, visible
Right.
to pedestrians and to traffic on Middlesex Turnpike.
And just, I understand you, but just, this is going to be retail and potentially some restaurant-type use. It's not going to be,
Right.
it's not going to be an office use.
Okay. Even still, I do agree that you got plenty of signage that can go on the side of the building that's going to serve your purpose. And I wasn't aware that the tower on the opposite side of the road was a PDD, or otherwise I think your argument would be more persuasive, but that's all I have right now.
Just, if you could just consider that, the Wheeler Road storefronts, how, as you can see from the photo at the Dunkin' Donuts, if you're right at the Dunkin', you can't even see the building. You can't even see the, sort of like the basement level tenants. So it's really to get some recognition to them. I completely agree, the Middlesex Turnpike storefronts fronting that, they have plenty of signage there. It's just, just please consider that the basement tenants,
I thought you said you were bringing it up to grade, so,
the,
Only along Middlesex Turnpike.
the Middlesex Turnpike, I mean,
saying it to Wheeler Road, is that what you're referring to?
right, the Wheeler Road ones is the one that,
There's a downstairs row of stores that face out.
Oh, I see.
That face out towards Wheeler
So
Road.
you're not going to bring that side up to grade?
It'll-
Yep, this will be the side up to grade facing out, but if you go down to the downstairs and
you can't see them, it's just so,
it's the storefront, it's like where the front door is now to get into the ski house, it's facing towards the,
I know how you read.
so there's no visibility there. This one here, there's no visibility here from
So what about the back of the building? In other words, they do at Wayside.
That is essentially the back of the building. This building,
No, you're saying one fronts off to Wheeler Road and one fronts off to Middlesex Turnpike. And then there's, like, say, for example, on Wayside Common, we dealt with this issue where there's signage in the back, so that you're getting some,
this is
some
essentially,
visibility.
this is the back here, but that's at a lower level where those glass storefronts will be facing that way. This is the front up here, this is the side of the building. So.
When I say the back, Tom, I'm referring
he's
to
talking about the
the
ramp,
ramp.
128 ramp.
ramp.
Where,
Exactly.
yeah, the idea was to not have kind of like a sign all the way around the building, consolidate, so you have a directory where everyone just knows who's there. And if you have, I've been before the board on other signage, and I heard, and granted, it's the past board, but the preference is not to have signs plastered all over the side of the building. It's more to have, let's have a consolidated area. It's more centralized, more efficient, and not as, I guess, visually scattered. That was what we heard back. So that was the reason why we put the signage there, as opposed to all along the back and the ramp, et cetera, so.
Thank you.
Charles?
So for the parking, there's 103 spots of parking there. Is that required parking? I guess my question is, could you remove some parking to get closer to the 40%?
No, there's potential for restaurants, small restaurants to move in there, and until we know the number of restaurants, the size of restaurants, the seats, they take more parking than retail use. So if you look at just retail use, we're a little over, but once you add in the restaurant use, we're definitely not gonna be over the parking requirement.
Okay. So what would you, if you went with all retail in this area, what would be the required parking?
Calculate out, it might be 5 spaces left. We're not that much over.
Okay. So it's not like 25 spaces less or something like that?
Just, if I could just add to that, I know it's a sort of economic business. the landscape, as you know, of business retailing has really changed. Amazon, all this other stuff, everything's getting pulled out of the physical boxes. And so you're kind of left with services that Amazon can't provide, which is food, which is other services. And so those are the services that require more parking. And without that, that means that we've had that same comment back from some of the other tenants we've had, is that they just can't get enough business in order to make it work there. And last thing we want is, in everybody's interest, is to have something that's kind of dead and nothing's happening. We think that the best, direction for everyone is to have something that's, you see a lot of pedestrians, vibrancy, it's kind of at the gateway, and coming in, you see everything's hubbub happening in Burlington, as opposed to right now, it's kind of, wow, that's kind of dilapidated. Does that represent the rest of Burlington? I wouldn't want it to. I want something that's more, this is kind of the new stuff that's happening. You got the new shops, the services that are going to be Amazon-proof. That's the hope, to just kind of send that signal for Burlington.
Okay. So my last kind of question or really a comment, I guess, is on the tower piece. It looks like that from the drawings that I have, that you would at some point be looking for like 24 signs on that tower. Is that, am I correct in
That, we're not looking for any signs at this point.
Right now.
There's a
Is there a
visual there
potential
as
for
to what it
24
would
signs?
potentially look like. Obviously, we'd have to come before this board before we got any signs, but I think the plan was to put some sort of signage up there. I know over at the Middlesex, the one across the street there, they have like a clock on one of the faces, and they have signs on some of the other faces. So, I mean, ultimately, we would be amenable to this board's desires as to how that part of it was dealt with, but, we're still down the road from that.
I don't have any other questions at the moment.
Brenda?
I like your tower. You're welcome. I think it meshes well with the neighboring retail properties. I think you put together a nice presentation. I don't have any negative things to say, to be honest, and I don't have any real questions, so, thank you.
Jim?
So did you guys consider maybe reducing the height of the tower and making it 4 spaces, or essentially 4 spaces for your 5, 6, 7, and 8 tenants versus all 8?
I think, speaking
'Cause if-
for myself, and I'll defer to my client, I think we're receptive to any sort of a compromise that the board might be willing to consider. We clearly, it was designed in such a way to try to address all the tenants we're going to have in the building.
Right.
The point was made earlier that the people up on Middlesex Pike don't need the visibility quite as much as the others, and that's a good point.
Right,
Maybe that's something we could certainly consider.
right. Yeah, because they'll have the street-facing signs.
One of the features of the tower is that it's actually rotated, right? It's not parallel and perpendicular to the facade that is directly out to the Middlesex Turnpike, and that's for a reason. Hopefully, when you're on the Middlesex Turnpike, you're not rubbernecking at 90 degrees.
Right.
Because it's really dangerous, so when you come up from the bridge, you want to be able to see there, as well as when you're coming north on the Middlesex Turnpike. And that's why different sides of the tower are used to look in different directions. I think it's kind of a nice design feature. You're right with that kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if the intent is visibility for the lower-level tenants, to me, it would make sense just to have their names up there, but, the only other comment I had was, I guess logistically, just the way the building is situated, how are you gonna do deliveries?
Deliveries?
Yeah, just, I mean, it's not a zoning thing, but it just, the way that the building is set back so far, and I can't imagine 18-wheelers coming in there to make deliveries to these retail, your retail clients.
We think a lot of these, the idea would be to lease it
AB Mason and doing deliveries there.
We imagine that when we sort through the actual lease plan itself, that there's likely to be an internal elevator that connects probably down to the lower level. A lot of these guys will just try to deliver to the front door of the typical retailer, but it sort of takes a little bit of training to get them to understand that maybe there's a place that's better for dropping off or always going around the halls.
That's all I had.
All right, I have a few questions and potentially some information that I'd like to see if you guys could gather if you don't have it now. One of your, this first rendering that you showed us of the existing building, it shows the approximate distance, the approximate height of the existing building from Middlesex Turnpike. Do you have the height of the building, of the existing building? Like from the grade at the building? Like as would be measured by the bylaw?
So we grade the existing site to the existing building.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my point is if it's 32 feet from Middlesex Turnpike, it's even more from the existing grade.
Yeah, I think that's
So I'd like to know what that comparison is from existing to proposed. That makes a difference.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty significant, because as we described, if you were to stand at the guardrail at Middlesex, and you look, the grade is down, it's not right there as we're proposing it.
Right.
So my bet is that the maybe a little bit higher, so I think we'd have to do the calculation to figure that.
And one of your other, on the same topic there, one of your other displays shows that your main roof line looks like it's gonna be pretty similar as far as actual elevation.
Yeah,
Alright.
height-wise, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very similar, it's pushed back a little bit, and again, the facade isn't rotated.
Again, if you could give us, with the existing height, if you could give us the existing elevation, just so we can compare the two. Again, you're asking for a variance, so knowing what the difference between existing and proposed makes a difference in my mind. One of the comments was that there was about a 9% increase in the impervious. Could you get us the exact numbers, the exact square footage?
That's for sure. I think
Yeah.
we gave you exact square footage of the proposed, and I'll get you the exact square footage.
Yeah, on the existing, just, that way we know, what type of square footage we're talking about. I mean, I could do the math, I guess, but, going back to Charles's comments about the parking, I do the math, if I'm right, your minimum for retail, I understand you said something about restaurants, your 88 parking spaces for retail, for strictly retail, minimum, 99 max. So you're not really that far over, you're a couple over, which, again, depending on the square footage, those couple could make a difference. Also, as far as that goes, did you put any consideration into any compact spots in this to try to reduce impervious?
Compact spots really don't work well with retail use. People tend to just park in the closest spot they can, and then if there's, you better not have a compact car or not. And then if there's all the space used up and a pickup truck pulls in, he can't get into the compact. So it's been found that compact spaces really don't work well for retail use.
Okay. The driveway around the rear, what I would call the rear of the property along the 95 on-ramp, is that for vehicular access for customers, or is that just for deliveries and fire access? So what's,
Is for customers and fire access around the building.
okay, would it, and
And-
there was a comment about deliveries, you'd expect deliveries to come
I
back there?
don't
Would
think,
they
I don't
deli-
think we expect deliveries. It's designed so potentially there could be a drive-through window there for a bank or whatever at one end of it. So there's enough room for cars to get by if there's a car parked there. But meets the minimum requirement for a fire lane.
Okay. I guess something to consider would be, trying to, again, make that some kind of impervious surface. If you're planning on customers going back there, that's one thing, but a fire lane, it's been shown that a fire lane could be an impervious paver or something along those lines. Again, just anything that, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. It looks like you fit this on the site pretty well as far as that goes, and you do have some restrictions with the shape of the lot, but anything you could do to reduce it, I think would be beneficial, so I would just ask you to consider looking at it. So for the height, yeah, I have some serious concerns about the tower. I guess I want to clarify and make sure that it's clear. There is no usable space up there. There's not even access to, there's no floors, it's strictly a tower. As of shown right now, it's strictly for signage.
Yep, it's probably in fact.
Okay.
You want a floor?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer or bad.
It's not really a good one. Well, it wouldn't really matter to me personally, but in my opinion, and I'll have to ask the building inspector for clarification on this, that's a roof sign in the BG, and I don't believe that's allowed. So,
On the tower?
yeah,
I mean, there are some, if you go up to the Staples Plaza, they have smaller towers, but they have four of them scattered around. And they put signage up.
is it above the roof line? I'll have to look into that and see how that was granted. I mean,
I know what you're saying, but it's not usable space, so it is above the roof line.
yeah, I mean, it's a sign above the roof line, which, would be a roof sign, which isn't allowed in that district. And
The only, we have a letter from the building department, obviously verifying the variances that we needed, and he did not make that comment that, I didn't ask him about it, but he
Right.
didn't make the comment that you can't be putting signs up there. And as a practical matter, we understand we can't put signs up there without this board's approval anyway, so if between now and then it's deemed you can't, then
well, I mean, that's my consideration. I mean, even if you could, I don't agree with the tower.
Right.
But we couldn't grant a variance. Even if we granted you a variance for the height for the tower, even if it was usable space and we said you could build it, I don't believe we can grant the type of sign. We could grant a dimensional variance for it, but not for a type of sign.
I mean, it could be true. And obviously, the building department, I assume, would red flag it before we could even file for an application. But they didn't mention it as being an issue when they reviewed the plans for
Yeah, I mean, he might not have been looking at it from that perspective, so, I mean, that would be something I would want to clarify with him before we even voted on this anyways. I mean, that would, if you can't put signs up there, I'm going to assume you wouldn't even want the tower, so it makes a difference to you as. And then for the height of the rest of the building, I think, well, let me start with, hold on, I have a lot of plans here. The elevation from the second floor to the main parapet, which is your roof, is 32 feet. Why do you need 32 feet? Most retail buildings aren't that tall for a single, what at that point is a single floor. Why couldn't you make it 30?
Why can you make it 30?
Yeah, well, 30 is 30 for that roof would be the requirement. I know you have to take it from the average grade, but you're building it up even more. I guess my question is, why are you building it that tall? Are you looking for a certain ceiling height inside? Or are you just looking to have the building higher so it's more visible from Middlesex Turnpike?
To us, it's essentially about street presence.
Okay.
It's trying to if you see all the comparisons, it's really trying to say, you know what, we want to have the same presence and same visibility as the other ones for various reasons. For the ones I mentioned, is not only for us, but also it is a cornerstone for it. I think you don't want kind of a recessed, because as it is right now, actually the second floor, the one that fronts on Middlesex Turnpike, the entry doors are actually a foot below Middlesex Turnpike. It's not even as high as the actual elevation of Middlesex Turnpike. You will notice that people have their knees cut off, or because, and in addition, there's a guardrail there, so that'll even further block. So we're not really at the level, at the grade of Middlesex Turnpike like you see on the other side, or the retail buildings there. So, and our sort of renderings are trying to get us up to a level, but we're not even up there. So that's why we're asking for that, but we're not even up at the same retail level where the people are walking, the cars will, the tires will, you won't see the tires. You'll see like the half of the top of the car. So we didn't try to like over and then try to budget down. We wanted to be reasonable and say, this is what everybody else is, fit into be part of the neighborhood. And as you can see on the photos, we tried to be pretty much in line with everybody else. We didn't start off and try to do a negotiation. Here's high, okay, sure, we'll cut down, and we want to be honest with you and just say, this is what we think will work. This is what, from everyone's perspective, from our perspective of making the retailers be able to stay there and not have constant turnover, it's just a bad impression when you have all these people just making, you want stability, you want something that says, this is there's a lot of stores that are gonna be economically, they're gonna be stable here, they're gonna work well here, and this is a town that you can do it in. I think that's the message you kind of wanna have, we wanna have, and I think we're kind of in line, us and the town in that regard. We definitely don't want it to be what it is right now, which is sunken down. I think it sends the wrong message to the people coming into Burlington, what type of place, and they see other places, but I think this would help. If you have something that's positive that says, wow, bring it up, be part of everything, show the things that are happening, I think it'll be a positive for the community.
No, I agree that this proposal is, well, most of this proposal is a big improvement from what's there now. And I understand bringing that floor up to kind of the street level of Middlesex Turnpike as much as you can. I agree with that. I don't know, the way I kind of view that as far as the variance goes is that the zoning says that you need to measure from the mean grade, and then when you drop off in the back of the site, makes a huge difference. But if you just took the grade from around the tenant spot, from the second floor and you go up, you're still not compliant with zoning, which is 30 feet, which is what it would be in that zone. And I just don't know, my argument would be that would seem more in line with zoning to me if you don't need the 2 extra feet. If you needed it for some reason, that besides wanting to be a little higher, I mean, you're bringing it up to bring on the street level, you're at street level or close to it. The height of the building on that part of the retail space isn't bringing you more to street level, it's just making the building taller. So there's that, and then you have the parapets, you have 2 smaller towers here, which again, just bring it a little further, which I don't actually mind, I like the architectural feature, but it's just, again, over. So if the main roof was at 30 feet from the second floor, for those 2 towers to be a little bit over wouldn't bother me so much as the whole roof being over. Again, the fact that you're showing a sign there is a discussion for another day, because I don't think it's compliant, but the towers themselves, I don't have a problem with. So, I mean, we'll open this up too, but I think there's some more information that we need. I think you've heard a lot of members say that they aren't favorable to the tower, and it's at least in its current configuration. So that is something I think you guys might want to talk about and consider. For the meantime, this is a public hearing, so I will open this up to the public. If anyone would like to comment in favor or against this proposal, please come up to the microphone, introduce yourself. I think the microphone's on the table there.
Good evening. My name is Vic. I'm the general manager of Hilton Garden Inn, which is right next door from this property. I love the presentation. Certainly we can use the curb appeal, what they're talking about. I'm only here from the point of view of the hotel. We are a 24-hour operation. I just want to know how we will be affected or the traffic will be affected while this construction is taking place. And will any utilities or anything will be affected while this construction is taking place?
As far as the traffic goes, that's really a planning board issue. That's not what we're here to discuss right now. Construction traffic, again, I believe that the planning board could restrict that to certain hours. I don't know that it would affect you. I think a lot of the traffic would come from Middlesex Turnpike. That's my opinion, though. DPW would have a better answer, but I don't see how your utilities would be affected. If they would need to do any shut-offs in any way, they wouldn't be shutting your water off, or anything like that. So, I'm sorry, I don't have a more definitive answer for you. Like I said, traffic is really more of a planning board issue, and they will have to go to the planning board if we grant them the variances that they're looking for to get site plan approval, and traffic would be an issue there. Drainage would be an issue that they would address there as well, which could potentially have an impact on you. And they could coordinate with DPW about hours of operation for construction and any utility issues. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor or against this proposal? I think we're looking for more information, so unless anyone else has any comments, I think it'd probably be beneficial to keep the public hearing open for now. Does anyone else have any other questions or requests for information from the applicants at this time? Do you have anything else for us while we're here?
I believe you've heard everything that we have.
Okay.
The questions that you've asked, and we can certainly regroup and come up with answers.
Yeah, if you could give us, just a couple, some of those pieces of information, just make it a little easier to kind of put some backing.
Send it to Joe Ellen.
Yeah, that'd be great. And you might want to follow up with the building inspector too, but I'll follow up with them about the
Double
tower.
check with them, sure.
We can both, and then we can circle back to that. That's gonna have a big impact on that tower, and whether we would even bother to approve it or not.
Okay. 21st, is that your next meeting?
Yes.
Make a motion to continue.
Just for the board's sake, some of the, I guess John's out of town, and I think we can get the answers that we need for you. I'd rather try to keep it on this timeline, just to moving. But I just want to let you know that Mr. Rufo, if there's any questions you might have of the architect, he probably won't be here.
One of my partners could also be here.
Okay. Yeah, we'd like to keep it moving along as well, so.
All right, so the 21st.
I'll make a motion to continue the make a motion to continue the hearing to May 21st.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to continue this hearing to our next meeting of April 21st. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, May 21st. Behind myself. All right, the next item on our agenda is a new hearing for T Ameritrade for new signage as advertised. Please come up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and give us a brief overview of your project.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Christine Hung from Reamer and Bronstein, attorney for the applicant, TD Ameritrade. With me tonight is Scott Spalding from Viewpoint Sign and Awning. The applicant is looking to relocate from its current location on Mall Road to 15 Third Ave. In connection with that relocation, it's seeking to install 2 wall signs, 2 awning signs, and a window sign. The 2 wall signs are non-compliant pursuant to the Northwest Park PDD sign bylaws. However, there is a provision in the Bancroft decision that that doesn't allow any other signs on the building, even if by right. And so that's why we're seeking relief for all 5 signs tonight. We didn't bring any boards with us tonight, but the plans are the same as what was submitted to you. Sign A is a wall sign, and it is the sign that's going to be on the 2nd floor that's facing the parking lot. And it exceeds the length dimension. It's fine on the height dimension. Similarly with sign B, which is the wall sign facing 3rd Ave, it's the same dimensions, but it's a little bit longer in length. I would note that the previous tenant, Carter's Jewelers, their signs were slightly longer and higher than what's being proposed tonight, and then that was approved unanimously by the board back in 2014 or 15. The 2 awning signs comply with the sign bylaws, as do the window signs that don't exceed 10% coverage. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have tonight on the signs.
All right, Jim, any questions?
I do not, no.
Brenda?
Do you know what the exact dimensions were of the signs the Jewelers had?
Yeah, they were, let's see. So they were 14 feet by 5 inches long by 2 feet, 4 inches high.
Sorry, can you repeat that, 14?
14 feet, 5 inches in length, and 2 feet, 4 inches in height. And that was approved back in August 5th of 2014.
Thank you.
And then our proposed signs are 2 feet in height and 13 feet and 5 1/8 in length.
Brenda?
That's all, thank you.
Charles?
I don't have any questions.
Mark?
Do you know how, what the length is of the Boston Interiors sign that sits on just below the roof line there on?
I don't have those dimensions. Hold on, let me see if. No, I don't have those dimensions. I don't think I could find that variance. Sorry.
I have nothing other than that.
Just so you're asking for 5 signs, and the place that was there before you, the jewelry store, they had all these 5 signs?
I don't know, I just know that they had those like wall signs. I think that they might have had like other window coverings and
So just the sign facing Middlesex Turnpike is smaller than the one that was there before?
wait, so just the sign facing Middlesex Turnpike is small, so both of the Carter signs were the same dimensions, just like our proposed 2 signs. Does that make sense?
Sign A and B.
Yeah, sign A, our sign A and B are,
Same as the
Same,
signs that were there
yeah.
before?
they're smaller than what Carter's had
A and B.
proposed. Yeah,
Smaller.
yeah.
I don't know what it is, so.
Just on the awning signs, just clarification, the awning signs are only on the parking lot side,
That's correct.
not on Third Ave side.
That's correct. So even though there are, there are no awnings on the Third Ave side. On the parking lot side, there are 6 awnings, but only 2 will have signs.
Okay. All right, there are awnings on the Third Ave side, but no awning sign.
Correct, yeah.
Right,
The-
okay.
The signs in the parking lot sign are just there to designate their entrance.
Okay,
Since
yeah.
they have the one, kind of have to put the other sign.
Yeah, that's just why I wanted to clarify, because I saw awnings over there, and I didn't want there to be any confusion that there would be signs there or not.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yep.
And then, how are these illuminated?
LED facelit.
Okay, and the lumens per
Less
square
than
foot?
90 square feet per
Is
square
that
foot.
noted
Yeah,
on here somewhere?
just, as a matter of fact, they're 235 lumens per square feet, so there's going to be a dimmer on the sign at 38%, brings it to the 90 lumens what the town requires.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. This is a public hearing. Is anyone here to speak in favor or against this proposal? Seeing none.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Anyone else have any other comments, questions, or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve TD Ameritrade for 2 wall signs, 2 awning signs, and 1 window sign. As shown on plans, numbered 18.0435, dated April 11th, 2019, revision 9, pages 1 through 7.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. All set.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
All right, minutes. Last meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from our meeting of April 16th, 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I will abstain. So 501, or 401, I guess. Well, actually, yeah, all right, so Jim votes, so 5-0. I'll just accuse myself now. All right, that's it. Any other business?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Meeting adjourned.